So yeah, well, for anyone that doesn't know me, I'm the crazy scientist. I part of the reason we wanted to do these, kind of get straight into it, is we've worked with businesses now across all kinds of different industries, and we've helped. It's probably coming up closer to about £500,000 now in additional sales that we've helped our clients to generate. And this is in, again, in all sorts of different industries, people that have said, marketing just doesn't work for us. I just can't get any traction here. This isn't going to work. And, we've helped them to really achieve breakthrough results. So we really wanted to get this out to a wider audience, especially with everything else that is going on in the world right now. This isn't going to be a kind of minute technical details about, how to help you set up your first ad account, for example. This is going to be more on the overall strategy that you can implement, a practical strategy that you can implement to really achieve a breakthrough in your business. So that's what we're looking to do. So go on, mate.
If they wanted any of that sort of fancy stuff, you've got plenty of that on your YouTube channel already on Elevate Digital, haven't we? So can they just head across there if they want to check that out?
Absolutely. Yeah, good shout. So yeah, people can absolutely head across to the YouTube channel. So we've got more, I guess, slightly more technical kind of how-to guides and step-by-step processes. So yeah, just type Elevate Digital into YouTube. We're now the first result that comes up. Luckily, you'll see by the little Rocket Man icon. And yeah, be sure to subscribe because we've got tons of value-packed content in there as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Right, let's get into these questions.
I raided the mailbag, mate, and I managed to find a few of the messages that I've been having with conversations with people, and I've sent you across 3. So you're going to kick off with those, or are you going to go into these first?
Yeah, let's kick off with these. So first one, my website is only converting visitors at 3% from visitors to leads. I'm in the coaching niche and I'm considering things like ClickFunnels because they say this is a fix. So these kind of ones are always tricky to answer without being able to see the website. However, one kind of key distinction to draw here, because I think there is some confusion around this between like websites, landing pages, funnels and ClickFunnels and all of that. A landing page or a sales funnel is specifically designed for if you are driving traffic and you want that traffic to take one particular objective when they hit your site, i.e. becoming a lead or buying a product. What you need to remember is typically with a website, you will have multiple different pages on there, right? You'd typically have a header menu, you'd have like your about page, you'd have your blog page, people can read about you. What will often happen is people will click around, but they won't end up taking any action. Now, the main difference with a landing page is that a lot of the time you won't even have a header menu. A landing page is designed to speak directly into the pain point of that audience and show them why your solution, your product is what they need to be going ahead with, right? And the call to actions on that page will be very consistent, very congruent, and it's driving people to one specific outcome. So yes, a dedicated landing page is absolutely going to help to increase your conversions if you have one specific conversion outcome that you're looking for people to take. So it can be a good method to use, but I would just say if people aren't converting because the copy on your website isn't converting, if you set up a ClickFunnels account and make a landing page with the same kind of copy, chances are you're probably going to have the same problem. So this is where, we'd need to do a bit of a deeper dive and really find out, okay, what is actually going on here? Is the messaging not speaking to the audience? Is the copy just not compelling enough? Maybe the offer isn't compelling enough. There could be a number of things that are leading to low conversions. So hopefully that answers it. Rich, do you want to add anything on that?
No, I'd say you're pretty much on point with that. I mean, it could even be a mixture of all of the above. I mean, 3% of, and this is the ultimate question, is what's the method of driving traffic there? Are we doing organic posts? Are we doing it through SEO? Are we doing it through paid marketing? Because if you're paying for traffic to actually come into these pages, then ideally you want to try and narrow down the focus to what they're actually there for in the first place. If you're driving it to a website with 10 tabs, chances are, if you're anything like Tom, for example, not picking too much, buddy, who's going to want to dive into every last minute detail, you're not focusing the attention, you'll lose a lot of traffic, right? Whereas if you're sending them to a singular page, a one-page website with no other distractions, and you're hitting them with your offer and you're explaining why it makes sense and you're taking them through with good constructed copy, if you're paying for the traffic, that's more likely to get you a better result. But it doesn't mean that immediately jumping to another silver bullet, in this case, maybe ClickFunnels, is going to solve the problem. So as Tom said, send in the website, to be reviewed, have a look, drop Tom a message, and let's look to try and do something with it. And we'll actually be able to give you a more specific answer tailored to your specific situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So next question was,
actually, can I jump in on the
Jane,
same topic as around websites? Tom, can you mute yourself because it's echoing when we're both in the same room?
There you go.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm in a lot of groups with startups and solopreneurs and coaches, and a lot of the business owners asking, when is the good time to actually build a website? So for the time being, they're getting their sales through outreach, through social media and all that, and actually they don't need a website. But at what point would you say would be a good time to start considering a website, especially when you're in the service industry? I think for e-commerce, it's kind of like self-explanatory, really. You can start with a basic one on Shopify or WooCommerce. But in terms of the service industry, so like coaches and freelancers, what would you recommend?
Tom, you, me? Who do you want to take? Tom, you need to unmute, mate, if you want to speak. You're muted.
Okay, cool.
There you go, mate.
So, in terms of when the right time for a website is,
yesterday.
I don't think there's really a specific answer to this. I will just say, if you are in the kind of B2B services industry, you do not need a website. And I think a website can become more of a distraction than an asset for a lot of people. And it certainly did for us when we started. So, when we started, I spent months tinkering with our website, and, the first client we actually got in didn't even so much as look at our website. So it's really something to think about. Like if you know what you're doing, if you have a strategy of actually acquiring new customers and aren't just relying on your website, and this is a big thing, I think, again, if you're in the services space, you can't just sit on your backside and expect people to come to you because you've now got a shiny new website or because you're doing some posts on social media. You actively need to be going out and building relationships with people, whether that be on social media, whether it be LinkedIn, whether it be cold outreach through like cold emails or cold calling, whatever that might be. You really need to be doing the work instead of just waiting for people to come to you. Otherwise, you're going to end up in a very, very difficult situation. So I would say don't let a website become a distraction. You absolutely don't need one. And I know several consultants and coaches who do well over 6 figures a year without a website. Right? All they need is their LinkedIn profile, they need Stripe, and they're good to go, right? And they got a Zoom account, like done. You really just need to look at the business model. Like Jane said, obviously, if you're in e-commerce, you are going to need one. Sure, you might be able to use things like, I don't know, Etsy, for example, to begin with, even though they are going to take a cut. Maybe you then want to upgrade to a website later down the line, your own website. But yeah, I don't think there is a specific time. I would just say be sure that your website doesn't become a distraction. What websites are good for is adding credibility, because people are probably going to Google you at some point, but also being able to scale as well. So if you want to get to the point where you're, running paid advertising, you want to get it directed to the website and get leads or sales through that, great. But when you're starting out, just don't let it become a distraction.
Pretty sweet. Wouldn't argue that.
Coolio. Right, next question. Shall I move on to the next one?
Carry on, mate. Yeah.
Cool.
Sent them all over earlier.
Yeah. So the next one was, I've taken 3 different copywriting courses because I was told copy is important. Yes, just a bit. I'm fairly new to sales and copywriting. Any tips or advice on how I can write better copy? So yes, copywriting is a very, very deep subject that takes a very long time to master. But to give you some very basic tips, that I see a lot of people falling into this trap. On the most fundamental level, the biggest mistake a lot of people make when it comes to copy is they write about their business. They try to sell their business, their products, their services to people. They write about all the features and benefits and how wonderful it is. People don't care. People do not give a shit. Like, honestly, the amount of times I see like social media posts and things from companies saying, oh, we're the best, we're award winning, we do this, we do that, nobody else does this. Like, no one cares. The best way to grab someone's attention, and there is a saying in copywriting, I can't remember who said it, I don't know, maybe it's Robert Collier, but it's, you need to always be entering the conversation going on in the prospect's mind, right? So meeting them where they're at. What are the pain points they're really struggling with at the moment? So you want to think about this, this applies to ads, this applies to videos, it applies to social media posts. You want to start with a captivating headline that is calling out a particular audience. So whether that be, coaches, are you fed up of being undervalued by your clients? Or maybe it's, whoever else it's speaking to, right? Like, insert your audience and speak into a pain. So you're calling them out and you're grabbing their attention. And then you kind of lead them into, dive into that pain a little bit deeper. And this section here where you're diving into the pain, the purpose of this is to really show that you understand, because there is so much noise out there these days, right? And a lot of people are very skeptical. When you can show someone that you intimately understand the problems they have, the impact that it's having on their life, they are going to listen up, but they're also going to begin to trust you. So it's really important you don't skim over this. Like, a lot of people feel a bit icky about it and like, oh, I don't want to go there. I don't want to call, them out on this, but it helps people to feel like that you understand them. The next thing you can do, and there's several different ways, so I'm not going to go into all of them, but this is just an example. You want to try and slay a paradigm or a commonly held belief, right? So a way that they are doing things at the moment, and show them why that isn't the case. So you could do this maybe by giving some examples to the contrary. If they have a belief that they need to do things in this way, but not everybody gets a result, call that out, show people that that isn't always the way. Because you want to get people, when they're reading copy, to think differently. You want them to have a shift. You don't just want to kind of give them some, how-to educational content. You want them to have a shift in their mindset and how they're seeing things. You then want to transition into the service that you provide, right? So you can maybe introduce here some social proof, some results you've got for past clients and how you help them transition to that. And then most importantly, to finish with a call to action, right? So get in touch, take the first step. Like, what is the first step somebody can take on that journey? Whether it be contacting you directly through DMs, whether it be downloading a free guide, a lead magnet, a training of some sort, but you then want to kind of transition. The key here though is to keep the focus on the person and not on you or your business. That's the main thing I'd say. Again, copywriting is a very, very deep topic, so I'm not going to go all into that, but I think even just remembering those things, even if this is your website copy, right? Like, on your website copy, you really want to be speaking into those pains, and then go in. Whereas so many websites that we've looked at, Rich, they start by saying about us, like what we do, straight away. And like, people just don't care. They don't care that you've been established for 20 years and you've won loads of awards. Not yet, anyway.
Especially if you're feeling it at the time when you actually hit the page. That's the last thing they want to know.
Exactly. Yeah. If
solve a
you are
problem.
in pain, yeah. Social proof is important, but it comes later after you've earned the right to tell them that social proof. Anything else you'd add to that, Rich?
I'll let you go first, Jane, if you've got something to add, because I know we kind of skipped over you last time, which was habit, I think.
Personally, for me, I'm terrible at copywriting, purely because English is not my first language. So I'm terrified of writing. This is why I leave these things to Tom. But if Tom was not in the picture and I was by myself, I'd probably give it a go, using the tips that Tom gave. But if I'm still not confident, I'd just shop around for a reasonably priced copywriting service within your budget. But be aware, obviously, it is a very, very sought after skill, and therefore it will be pricey. So it's just knowing, and doing a bit of a research and finding good quality copywriters with tons of reviews, and just start there. And it doesn't have to be anything massive or like a blog or anything. You can just aim for like a basic ad, for example, if it's the ad that you're running, or a product description, if it's the e-commerce, based service. So you can take that and then just model. So for example, if it was a product and you have a range of products and they're kind of all within the same area, like you can just pay good money, good copy for one product, and then just like model it and reshuffle a few words and descriptions around without having to pay over and over, the same money for the product. When it comes to services, again, have a good conversation with a copywriter in terms of your style, in terms of your approach, in terms of what your company is all about, so that they can use that language to portray, your personality, if it's the one-man show or if it's a bigger company, in that copy. So there's no disconnect in the messaging of what you're all about and how the copy speaks. And just like read and reread, and like give it to a few people to read just before you kind of use that copy and see what they think before it goes live on your website or on your ad. So that I would recommend. What about you?
Right, so I'm going to kind of summarize it into 3 key things. Number 1, what Tom said a minute ago, is it between 20 and 40,000 sales messages we get hit with on average per day?
Yeah, something like that, isn't it?
Right. So let's take an average, say 30,000. If you're seeing 30,000 messages every single day, I'd ask yourself one simple question: which ones make you stop and why? So that you know what it is that's actually making you stop, and then you can start to apply these principles in your own messaging. Next thing, I like the idea of modeling. Look at some of the people who are already doing quite well in the area you're in and say, okay, why do I like the stuff they're putting out? And save a few of their emails, save a few of their pages, look to see how they've kind of set it up and use it as a baseline understanding. This is under the premise you actually want to learn this, and you're not just wanting to palm it off to someone who knows what they're doing and hand it out, like Jane said, right? You're generally wanting to learn it beyond that point. A couple of key books, Tom, the Robert Collier letter book, is it? Which one is it?
Oh, blimey, there's loads. One of the best books I would say to check out is Scientific Advertising,
yep.
which I think, I may be wrong in saying this, I think it's Scientific Advertising, which is actually available for free now in the public domain.
Okay.
I think I'm right in saying that, but it's well worth checking out. It's a phenomenal book. David Ogilvy's Ogilvy on Advertising is another really good copywriting book. Some of them you will find, like by some of the copywriting greats, they can be very expensive. Like they go for £200-300. There are like Audible versions that you can get, so you can check those out as well. But yeah, I would steer more towards some of the old school copywriters as opposed to some of the modern day copywriting books, because it just doesn't compare. Like what you have to remember is, these guys back then, they were writing print ads, right? Like direct mail print ads. It's like they're literally sending things out to random houses and they have to get people to buy. Right now, we have the benefit of like advanced targeting on Facebook and, you know, lookalike audiences and things like that. They had none of that, right? So these guys were absolute master wordsmiths in getting people tapping into their emotions and getting them to take action. So yeah, I would highly recommend checking them out. Yeah, like Robert Collier, David Ogilvy, blimey, names are like escaping me now.
Why don't we just put a few links?
Yeah, we can put some links below for sure.
Below.
Yeah.
Those that like to read.
Eugene Schwartz. I think that was Breakthrough Advertising. Anyway, yeah, we'll put some links. We'll put some links in the video in the Facebook group.
And other than that, it's to use what you said there, a bit about targeting, knowing who it is you actually want to speak to and who it is you don't. Narrowing down the focus so that way, when you're putting your sales message out there, it hits the people you want it to and it repels everything else. One of the most common things you'll hear in coaching is I just can't seem to find the right people. 99% of the time, I would gamble to say it's because you're attracting a wide spread. You're not attracting the people you want. And that comes down to the things that come out of your mouth, people read, and the messaging you're putting out.
Definitely. 100% Yos. Right. So this next one, I think this is going to be a bit of a you question, Rich. I spoke with a prospective client the other day and the call was going great until we got to the price. When I said the course I sell is $2,495, he flinched out and the call went cold. I know this isn't a normal question, but I'm curious to pick your brains. Any books, tips, or guidance in the scenario? I'm guessing he didn't feel it was worth that, but the call was going so well. So I'll share some of my initial thoughts on this. Rich is the master sales closer, so I'll let him dive into this a bit as well. But my initial thoughts, I think a lot of people who get onto sales calls, they spend way too much time talking and selling. You want ideally at least 80% of that call to be you asking questions and actually finding if it's a good fit, like probing for those pain points and really getting deep as well, and not kind of shying away from what is the cost of inaction of you not buying this product or service now. Right. And really kind of looking at what are the repercussions? What is this costing you? How long has this been going on for? How much money is this mistake or this way of doing things costing you? Really getting deep on that. And then before you transition to tell people what you're actually offering, anchor them into those pain points, right? Remind them of those pain points. And then I would also do something called temp checking. Right. So just checking in with them, the person on the phone, and seeing how they feel about it. Like saying, if I had a solution to help you go through this, how would you feel about it? Like tell them the offer, tell them what you do, tell them about your product or service, temp check them again. How are you feeling about that? Is that something you'd want to go ahead with? And if not, finding out why. Like, did you miss something? Is there something that you're missing? And like really not diving into giving the price before you actually know you have a solution to a very, very painful problem to them, because that's not a cheap product or service, you know, $2,500, it's not cheap. So you really need to be doing the work of making sure that this is a really significant pain for this person. That's the main thing I'd say on it, but Rich, you can probably flesh that out a bit.
Can I just ask, like, would it be wise? Just not my question, this is other people's questions as well on the same topic. Is it wise to basically pre-qualify just before, so that you know that the person you're speaking to is actually within that budget range and can afford you? Because you can spend all these hours talking and explaining and probing the pain points only to find out that they're actually like way out of your budget.
Yeah, I'll just
at what point would you do that?
I answered this on a podcast recently, actually. It's a good question. So it was a podcast I did with Olu at Stay Hired. And he was basically asking, you know, how do you get better qualified leads? Because in bigger companies, you'll find there's often a real disconnect between sales teams and marketing teams, right? The marketing teams are incentivized by getting as many leads as possible. The sales team want to close new business. So what happens is a marketing team get desperate. They end up getting as many leads as they can, but then the sales team are like, well, these are shit leads. They're not qualified. So you've got like, you have what's called marketing qualified leads and sales qualified leads. And it's really important that if you are in a bigger company, that you kind of understand or you're aligned on what that looks like. And you're not setting unrealistic unrealistic targets and goals. So in terms of pre-qualifying them, yes, I think that's important. You just need to be aware that the more pre-qualification you do, the lower your conversion rates are going to be. Like it's just a natural byproduct of eliminating time wasters. And
through a sieve.
Yeah, exactly. It's 100%. It's putting them through a sieve. So, but it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? If you are getting better quality leads, then you're going to have more time to spend on the people who are actually interested in buying. So, but do draw the line somewhere, right? Like, I don't think you should be asking like 100 questions in a survey to pre-qualify people, because even the people that do want to buy are just going to get frustrated. So just test, you know, start by asking 2 questions and maybe move up to 3. And you just have to weigh up, is the drop in conversions actually worth the increased quality of lead I'm getting? There is no magic formula or correct answer to this. It's just something that you're going to have to test over time. But yeah, the best ways of doing this are going to be using things like Typeform or surveys. What is all that noise? Typeform or surveys, etc., or little forms you can have on your website or landing page. Make sense?
Yeah.
Cool.
I do have more questions around that, but I'll let Rich talk, and then maybe you will answer it.
No, that's fine. Cool. Yeah, please, go ahead. So I can make sure there's no echo. Yeah. Okay, so this is a rabbit hole, one big rabbit hole here, because there are so many things that could possibly be in play here. Let's like, from someone who's done door knocking, venue sales, high ticket sales, I've covered the lot, and I can tell you now, you don't do any of them the same way. 2 reasons. One, you're dealing with such a wide variety of different people with different needs and different temperature levels. And in one, you're dealing with actual and consultative, people are qualified beforehand. So your approach needs to be totally different. An example would be with a doctor, you go to a doctor, you book an appointment, and you go there because you have a stinking headache, right? So when the doctor comes in and says, describe the symptoms to me, you say, my head hurts, I'm going dry up here, I've got a temperature. Okay, right, cool. They then say this is what's wrong and they prescribe you the solution. But under this circumstance, they're a pretty warm audience. They need what you're offering. They've done all the legwork to get to you. So your approach and your style will be very different. If we're doing street pitching, so everyone knows the people you see on the street that says, hello, you, stops you randomly on the spot and tries to sell you something like that, you're in a very different position. I do it, I know, okay? So I can tell you for a fact that your approach is going to have to be very different. You're going to have to win them on your personality. You're going to have to give them a reason to stop. You need to earn their time and you need to make it worthwhile. And then you have to close the deal. So it's a very different approach. Now, because I don't know the circumstances to the question that's been posed, it was 2 and a bit grand, wasn't it? Something like that. Okay. Now, I have no idea about this person. I don't know enough about them to say exactly what's wrong, but I can give you a few things that potentially could cause that problem and how to actually inoculate against it so it doesn't happen. Jane has actually said one of them already. She's already said, do they not have the money? You know, again, it's a really grey subject because one could argue if you're in a situation where, you know, this is a business decision, surprisingly enough, most people, given the right motivation, will find money when needs a must. So my question would be, did they know the value you were going to provide before being on the call? Because if they don't know why they're spending time with you, and this was a cold lead you generated through a direct message on one conversation, and they know nothing about you or your business, they have a different mindset in this call to if someone who you've already shown in 150 case studies of showing breakthrough results in someone's business. And then to sum it all up, they're on that call after asking you to spend time with them, this call's going to go down very differently. Nextly, did you get to the root cause of their needs before asking for the amount? Because one of the most common things you'll see in good marketing and sales is they'll tend to, how can I put this, set the price differently. So for example, £2,000 sounds very different to 10. Now, if you knew you were getting $100,000 worth of returns, would you have a problem giving someone 10K? Probably not, because you're making 90 grand. But do they have that in their head when you ask them for 2.5 grand? Maybe not, I'd say, because if they knew they were going to get 10 grand's worth of results, 2.5 feels very, very small. But if they don't know what they're going to get back from this, there's fear in play. And what do we do when we're fearful? We run. So based on just what we know so far, there could be hundreds of different reasons, but the most common reason is value is not perceived. They do not see why they stand to gain. So therefore, in their head, they're saying, this person's asking me for 2.5 grand, and they're going, why? That's probably going to be why, but without knowing more details, it's very, very, very hard, because as humans, we're complicated human beings, okay, to precisely pinpoint what was wrong. Now, when it comes to qualifying in advance, there are many different things you can do. You can run quizzes. Tom's mentioned type forms, all sorts of things. You have to understand what temperature your customers are. And by that, I mean cold would be street pitching, someone you're interrupting who has no need for what you want right now. Warm would be they've watched a piece of content, they've checked you out, they've done a little bit of research about you, and now they're going to make a first introduction. Warm is they've binge watched every piece of content you've got. They know exactly why they want to work with you. And now they're booking a call because they want to know a few last final questions before handing out their credit card.
You mean hot? Hot.
Hot, warm, say the same thing, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
So knowing where they are in this so you can address it in the right mannerism. Okay. When you know that and you can take them from stone cold to hot, these problems don't come up because they're asking you to buy. So it's about constructing a sequence that's going to take someone stone cold to asking, how do we get started, or take my money? Basically, that's it. I'd be more than happy to kind of give you a couple of tips of advice if you wanted to send that in or connect me personally, but that's where we're at right now. Any questions, anybody?
Brilliant answer. Thanks, Rich.
What else did you want to ask, Jane? That's the end of our questions for today. So if you had anything else.
Oh my God, I forgot. I was just like so taken by Rich talking that I forgot my question.
He has that effect on people.
It was just in the back of my mind as you were talking, Tom, and I was like, I'll ask Rich at the end, and then I forgot.
That's because I leave space for ambiguity and Rich doesn't.
That's true.
And that's why I close deals, mate.
These are all my questions, really. Actually, I do have a question. Tom, can you mute yourself, please? So I don't know how to formulate it, really. It was just something that I have observed when, again, it's about websites. It's, again, steering towards, wanting a website. And the question was more around what parts, what components should one look out for when considering building a website? So let's say they are now ready and they decided that they do want one. So what would they need to consider when building a website or having someone to build a website for them, in terms of the platforms, in terms of the price, in terms of anything? What would you recommend?
What do you mean by, are you talking about things like whether it's on WordPress or Squarespace, for example?
Yes. I see a lot of debate in various groups about Wix, Squarespace, GoDaddy, obviously, WordPress. If it's a e-commerce, for example, store, Shopify, WordPress, Magento, whatever else.
Mm-hmm.
So
Etsy, Shopify, the list goes on and on.
Well, when I'm talking about website, I mean about like your own website. You own it. So Etsy is not your website. It's a platform that you use that is owned by Etsy. So equally, Shopify technically is not your website. But but it is one the most commonly used, really, just to get started as well.
I think this kind of comes back to similar to what we were saying earlier, right? About just knowing where you're at in the journey. It may well be that a, you know, cheap and cheerful website on Wix is going to serve the purpose for now. There will come a time where you outgrow Wix or Squarespace or any of these kind of cheaper website builders, because they are limited. They're limited in terms of the functionality. They're limited in terms of the things you can do from an SEO perspective. WordPress is just far more powerful. It's an open source platform, and it has much more scope for growth, integrations. So it's going to come down to your ambition as well, right? If you're somebody who isn't that ambitious, you're not looking at building a huge business, you just want a little side hustle, hey, like there's nothing wrong with Wix. It's a cool, quick and easy platform.
They even need it if they're in that
Yeah,
situation.
to build a website on. Exactly.
But the question around that is it worth then just going straight for WordPress rather than going for a simple WordPress website, rather than, you know, going on Wix or Squarespace, only to then find yourself that it's not good enough or it's too limited, and then moving away from that and spending more money, you know, transitioning to WordPress? So would you recommend to just go straight for WordPress, really, from financial and time and effort perspective?
Potentially, but again, this is going to come down to just knowing yourself and what you're looking to create. Again, if you are looking to create if you're someone who's looking to make a major impact and you're looking to create a serious business, yeah, go for WordPress. Like, take that initial investment up front. If you're not, if it is just a bit of fun, then no. But yeah, if your long-term goals are really focused on this is what I want to do, then yeah, like putting that money up front. If you're able to get that money to invest in your business, and to build out a decent website, or to get one built for you, then absolutely do that. And this kind of comes down to, I think, Rich, you were maybe saying this earlier about, people will get resourceful, when they know that they need something. The other thing to consider here as well is it's almost like you're kind of doing yourself a favor by having skin in the game. I think this is something that people really underestimate. They play it safe by dipping their toes in the water and like, oh, I don't want to commit because what if it doesn't work out? If you go in with that mindset, and you see this with a lot of startups, if you go in with that mindset, you are never going to get anywhere. You might get very, very lucky. Good for you if you do, but it's extremely unlikely. If you go in with the mentality of, I have to make this work and I will make this work, then chances are you will. But in order to do that, you need to have some skin in the game. So by whatever you have to do, whether you take out a loan, whether you sell something to put it on that website, you then have skin in the game. You are going to be thinking, holy shit. Like Tony Robbins talked about this. Rich, you might have mentioned it, the thing you went to recently, but I saw an article where he was talking about when he started coaching, and like he was charging like £1 million or something for a coaching session, because he knew when people spend enough money that makes them uncomfortable, something shifts inside of them. If you just spend money that you're comfortable with, it's like, oh, I can afford to lose that. If you spend money you can't afford to lose, then something changes inside of you, and your whole being and way about doing something will shift. So you're doing yourself a favor actually by having that skin in the game.
The quote goes, if you want to take the island, burn the boats. Basically put. Now, under no circumstance, just out of clarity, are we all saying sell your homes and go? That's not our advice. What we're basically saying is that if you're going to take something seriously, take an action that represents that to yourself, because 90% of the time we don't play full out. You'll see that anyone who's ever done any sales at all will have heard this in the past, right? People will ask for help, but rarely will they do what they need to afterwards. They'll say, I need your help. Okay, this is what you need to do. Tomorrow or next Tuesday. Well, tomorrow never comes, because tomorrow is always the very next day. So the next thing is, why not now? If not now, then when? You know, we have to get to the reasoning behind that. But if you've just literally said, this is everything I've got, this has to work, there's no going back. You can't go back. You can't go and, you know, it's a bit like buying a car, isn't it? When you buy a car, second you drive it off the forecourt, you've lost half its value because it's now a second-hand car. When you make that decision, you can't go back in a minute and say, excuse me, I want my money back, because they'll laugh at you and say, that's fine, we'll give you half the value. So when you make that decision, you best be sure you want that damn car. And it's the same with everything else. The only difference is you may not get 50% of it back. But when you're that committed and you're that driven to making whatever the hell it is you're doing work, then unless you're going to literally accept that, okay, I've just lost all of this, you're going to have to keep going. And sometimes that's the motivation that, say, most people need to keep moving forward. But you really have to be honest with yourself up front and say, am I willing to go through the difficulties? Because the thing is, you know, it's better than it used to be. But do you remember like 15 years ago, you could get away with saying, it's easy, it's simple, buy my shit, you'll be rich. Do you remember that kind of advertising that used to take place? It doesn't work nowadays. Why? Because people are smart and they know that actually there's work involved, but sometimes they won't make that decision to make that investment. That's the thing that has to happen. You have to be honest with yourself. You need to know yourself. You need to make the right decision. And Tom pretty much summarized it perfectly a minute ago when he said it depends exactly on what you want to do. So get clear on what it is you want to do and then take action towards it and do something in that moment that's going to commit you to doing it so you don't step back.
Yeah. Awesome. Brilliant answer. Thank you, Rich and Tom. I'm just watching the time as well. We're 11:45 and quarter to 1 rather. And I just realized that Wednesday is our roast Wednesday. And we've totally messed up the timings between this webinar and the roast Wednesday.
Well, this was actually, I was saying earlier, like this was meant to be, I think people voted for Friday. So I did actually get the date wrong. So we'll probably change it, and it's still early days. And I think I'll probably reach out to some people directly and just see like what time works best for them. So we may well change it, but let's just see, you know, as it grows over time.
And are you still going to do Website Roast Wednesday?
Potentially, maybe we tie it into these sessions, you know, maybe we make it part of that. If I would absolutely like to, if we can get some more people on live, that would be the intention of being able to kind of brainstorm live and have a look at examples of ads or website or whatever it might be.
Awesome. See, any more questions? Anyone?
Those are the three we had in the mailbag. Dumped them out, laid them out. Then you regret it. I didn't get the names off there, but either way, hopefully that if you're watching the recording back, or if you're watching this live in the Facebook group, hopefully that was valuable to you. If you're seeing this from outside of the Facebook group, then what are you doing? Join and get in nice and quickly. Want to be able to carry on with this. Hope that was helpful. What else you got, guys?
Doesn't look like we've got any questions in the Facebook group. Yeah, so for anybody watching this on the replay, if there's anything that's come up, be sure to drop us a message or drop us a comment below and get on the next one, and we will brainstorm live. We will get your questions answered, and we will make sure that you get that breakthrough you're looking for. And also any major takeaways that you've had from today's session, drop them in the comments below so other people can see them and learn from it as well.
And we will also post all the sort of major topics that we've covered today, and with the timings in the captions of the video.
Cool. Awesome, guys.
Thank you, guys. That was fun. Finally being part of this.
Farewell, guys.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.